in this lesson, we're going to multiply decimals times decimals. So just like in the last lesson when we multiplied decimals times whole numbers, we're going to multiply the numbers, not worrying about the decimal point, until we get to the product. So 8 times 2 is 72. If you want, you can carry the 7 and then do 8 times 0, 0 plus 7. Or because there's just zeros as place markers in front of both of these decimals, we don't really have to even do that step. Now we're going to count the number of decimal places in our factors to see how many decimal places will be in our product. We have 1 decimal place in the first factor, 1 in the second factor, so that's a total of 2 decimal places, so our product would be 72 hundredths. Placing a 0 in front as a placeholder is optional. If we look at our second example, we'll multiply 6 times 4 is 24. 6 times 2 is 12, plus 2 is 14. And 6 times 3 is 18, plus 1 is 19. We don't have to multiply this 0, that's a placeholder. So we're finished multiplying. We now have to put our decimal point in the correct place. There are 2 decimal places in the first factor, 1 in the second, so it's a total of 3 decimal places that have to be shown in the product. So we get 1 in 944 thousandths. The next example, 2-digit multiplier, so we'll go through and multiply the 7 and get that. And then before we multiply by the 2, we do have to put a 0. The 7 represented 7/10. The 2 is in the ones place. The ones place is 10 times the value of the tenths place. So we put that 0 there to mark that extra place value that the 2 represents. 2 times 8, and then we multiply now once the multiplication is finished, we have to go through and make sure that we put the decimal point in the correct place in the product. So in our problem, we count there are 2 decimal places in the first factor, 1 in the second. That gives us a total of 3 decimal places. So it's 6 and 453 thousandths. We're going to go ahead and skip down to this one. And we're going to multiply 14 and 9/10 times 35 thousandths. So we multiply first by the 5. 5 times 9, and then 5 times 4, and we add in the 4 that we carried, and 5 times 1 plus the 2. Before we multiply by the 3, since it's in a place value column that's 10 times greater than hundredths, we're going to put the 0. 3 times 9 is 27, and then we'll keep multiplying, add those 2 products to get our final answer in which we need to place the decimal. So there's 1 decimal place in the first factor, 2 in the second factor, that's a total of 3 decimal places. So we have to show 3 decimal places in the product, so we get 5 and 215 thousandths. In some of the problems that we work, like this one, 3/10 times 3/10, we multiply 3 times 3 is 9. Remember, we don't have to multiply those placeholder zeros. And we count our decimal places. There are 2 decimal places in the factors. The product as it stands has only 1 place. We have to show 2 places in the product. So we have to add a 0 in front of the 9 to show that 3/10 times 3/10 would equal 9 hundredths. Similar situation in 5 hundredths times 3/10. 3 times 5 is 15. Even if we carry the 1 and bring it down, we have 2 decimal places. But when we count the decimal places in the product, we have to show 3 decimal places. 3 decimal places, not in our product, but in our factors. There are 2 decimal places in the first factor, 1 in the second factor. So that means we have to have a total of 3 decimal places in the product. So we have to add a 0 in front of the 15 to give us the product of 15 thousandths. And in another example, 3 times 2 is 6. And we don't have to multiply these 2 placeholder zeros since there's nothing in front of them. we have 2 decimal places in the first factor, no decimal places in the second factor. So we have to show 2 decimal places in the product, which means we have to add an extra 0. So sometimes zeros have to be added into the products to show the correct number of decimal places.